Why everyone gets triggered so easily, and you don't have to. Picture this, you're standing in line at a Starbucks in downtown Manhattan, checking your phone, when the person behind you mutters something about how people your age are always glued to their screens. Your blood pressure spikes, your jaw clenches. Suddenly, you're ready to turn around and give this stranger a piece of your mind. Sound familiar? Welcome to modern America, where getting offended has become a national pastime. We live in an age where a single comment can ruin your entire day, where social media notifications send us into emotional tailspins, and where we seem to be constantly scanning our environment for the next thing to get upset about. But here's what's fascinating. Over 2,000 years ago, ancient philosophers in Greece and Rome faced the exact same problem. People insulting each other, getting triggered, holding grudges, and letting other people's words control their emotional state. The difference? These ancient Stoics figured out something that most of us still haven't learned. They discovered that getting offended isn't something that happens to you. It's something you choose to do. Marcus Aurelius, who literally ruled the Roman Empire while dealing with critics, backstabbers, and political enemies every single day, wrote in his personal journal, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself." Think about that for a moment. The most powerful man in the ancient world was telling himself not to worry about what other people were saying about him. He had real problems to solve, an empire to run, and wars to fight. He couldn't afford to waste his mental energy on every person who had something negative to say. The Stoics understood something that we've forgotten in our modern world. Other people's words only have the power over you that you give them. When someone insults you, they're not actually doing anything to you. They're just moving air through their vocal cords or typing characters on a screen. The insult doesn't exist until you create it in your mind. This isn't about being a doormat or pretending that words don't matter. It's about recognizing that you have a choice in how you respond to what other people say. You can choose to let a stranger's comment ruin your morning, or you can choose to let it slide off your back like water off a duck. The ancient Stoics developed practical techniques for dealing with insults that are more relevant today than ever before. They faced the same human nature we face now. People who lash out when they're angry, people who say things they don't mean, and people who seem to go out of their way to be offensive. But instead of getting caught up in the drama, they learned to step back and ask better questions. Questions like, is this person worth my energy? What can I learn from this situation? How can I use this moment to become stronger and wiser? Over the next few sections, we're going to explore exactly how they did it and how you can apply these ancient techniques to your modern life. You'll discover why the person who doesn't fight back is actually the winner, and how to transform every insult into an opportunity for growth. 1. The 3 types of insults you face every day. Sarah works as a marketing manager at a tech startup in Austin. Last Tuesday, she presented her quarterly campaign results to the executive team. As she wrapped up her presentation, the CEO leaned back in his chair and said, "Well, I guess that's what happens when you let the marketing department play with real numbers." The room went silent. Sarah felt her face flush red, her heart racing as she tried to figure out how to respond. What Sarah didn't realize in that moment was that she was facing one of 3 distinct types of insults that we encounter in our daily lives. The ancient Stoics, who dealt with everything from political attacks to personal betrayals, categorized these different types of verbal attacks because they understood that each one requires a different response strategy. The first type of insult is what we'll call the ignorance insult. This is when someone says something offensive simply because they don't know better. They lack information, context, or basic social awareness. Think about the person who makes an inappropriate comment about your career choice because they genuinely don't understand what you do. Or the relative who asks when you're getting married for the 5th time this year, not realizing how painful that question has become. Marcus was riding the subway in Chicago when an elderly man looked at his tattoos and loudly declared, "In my day, only criminals had ink like that." The man wasn't trying to start a fight. He was operating from a completely different generational perspective, making a judgment based on limited information and outdated assumptions. The Stoics would tell you that getting upset about ignorance insults is like getting angry at a child for not understanding calculus. The person simply doesn't have the knowledge or perspective to know better. Seneca wrote extensively about this, explaining that we waste tremendous energy fighting against ignorance when we could be using that energy for something productive. The key to ignorance insults is recognition and release. Ask yourself, does this person actually know what they're talking about? Are they operating from incomplete information? If the answer is yes, then engaging with the insult is like trying to teach quantum physics to someone who hasn't learned basic math yet. It's not going to work, and it's going to frustrate both of you. The second type is the anger insult. This is when someone lashes out because they're experiencing their own internal turmoil. They're not really attacking you. They're expressing their own pain, frustration, or fear. The insult is a symptom of their emotional state, not an accurate assessment of who you are. Jennifer was stuck in traffic on the 405 in Los Angeles when another driver cut her off, rolled down his window, and screamed a string of profanities at her. She could see the stressed lines on his face, the way his hands gripped the steering wheel. This wasn't about her driving. This was about whatever was eating at him before he even got in his car that morning. The Stoics understood that angry people are like wounded animals. They strike out not because they're evil, but because they're hurting. Epictetus, who was literally enslaved and physically abused, developed incredible insight into this type of behavior. He taught that when someone attacks you out of anger, they're actually revealing their own lack of inner peace. The danger with anger insults is that they often come with the threat of escalation. Someone who's already emotionally dysregulated might move from verbal attacks to physical ones. This is where the Stoic principle of practical wisdom comes in. You don't have to absorb their anger, but you also don't want to pour gasoline on their fire. The strategy here is de-escalation through non-engagement. You're not trying to win an argument with someone who's not thinking clearly. You're trying to avoid getting pulled into their emotional chaos. Sometimes this means walking away. Sometimes it means staying calm and letting them exhaust themselves. But it never means matching their energy level. The third type is the most interesting, the wisdom insult. This is when someone says something that offends you, but if you look closely, there's actually some truth in it that you need to hear. These are the hardest insults to handle because they require you to swallow your pride and examine yourself honestly. David was at a networking event in Seattle when a colleague said, "You know, David, you have great ideas, but you interrupt people so much that nobody wants to collaborate with you." David's first instinct was to defend himself, to point out all the times he'd been interrupted by others. But something made him pause and really consider the feedback. The Stoics were masters at finding wisdom in criticism. They understood that sometimes the people who challenge us most directly are doing us the biggest favor. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." But he also wrote, "Be like the rocky headland on which the waves constantly break. It stands firm, and round it the seething waters are laid to rest." The key with wisdom insults is to separate the delivery from the message. Just because someone says something in a harsh or offensive way doesn't mean the underlying point is wrong. Maybe they're 80% wrong and 20% right, but that 20% might be exactly what you need to hear to grow. This requires what the Stoics called the discipline of perception. Instead of immediately reacting to the tone or the attack on your ego, you pause and ask, "Is there any truth in this that I can use? What would I tell my best friend if they came to me with this same feedback about themselves?" Understanding these three types of insults gives you a framework for responding appropriately instead of just reacting emotionally. Most people treat every insult the same way, but the Stoics knew better. They understood that wisdom lies in matching your response to the situation, not in having one default reaction to every challenge. 2. Why not fighting back actually makes you the winner. Mike was having lunch at a crowded restaurant in downtown Denver when the guy at the next table started making loud, obnoxious comments about his company's logo on Mike's polo shirt. "Oh great, another corporate drone who probably makes more money than he deserves," the stranger announced to his friends, clearly trying to get a reaction. Mike felt his muscles tense, his fists clenching under the table. Every instinct told him to stand up and put this guy in his place. But then Mike remembered something he'd learned from studying Stoic philosophy. The person who doesn't fight back is actually the one who wins. This sounds completely backwards to everything we're taught about standing up for ourselves, but the ancient Stoics understood something about human conflict that most people miss entirely. When Seneca wrote his famous letter to Lucilius about dealing with people who strike you, he wasn't talking to some peaceful monk living in a monastery. He was advising one of the most powerful men in Rome, someone who dealt with political enemies, business rivals, and social climbers every single day. Seneca knew that the temptation to strike back was strong, but he also knew that giving in to that temptation was a trap. Here's what Seneca wrote. "He struck you? Well then, do you fall back? If you strike him in turn, you will give him both an opportunity and an excuse for striking you again. You will not be able to withdraw yourself from the struggle when you please." Think about the wisdom in that statement. When you strike back, you're not ending the conflict. You're escalating it and losing control of when and how it ends. Let's break down why not fighting back actually makes you the winner in 3 specific ways that apply directly to your daily life. First, you maintain control of your energy and attention. Every time you engage with someone who's trying to provoke you, you're giving them exactly what they want, your mental and emotional resources. Lisa learned this lesson the hard way when she got into a Twitter argument with a stranger who criticized her small business. What started as a simple defensive response turned into a 3-hour back and forth that left her exhausted, angry, and completely distracted from the work she needed to do. The Stoics understood that your attention is your most valuable resource. Marcus Aurelius, who literally had an empire to run, couldn't afford to waste mental energy on every person who had something negative to say about his policies. He wrote, "Confine yourself to the present," because he knew that getting caught up in conflicts with critics would prevent him from focusing on what actually mattered. When you don't fight back, you keep your energy for the things that truly deserve it. You stay focused on your goals, your relationships, and your personal growth instead of getting dragged into someone else's drama. The person who tried to provoke you, they're the one who ends up wasting their time and energy on a conflict that goes nowhere. Second, you expose the other person's true character while protecting your own. When someone insults you and you don't respond in kind, something interesting happens. Their behavior becomes the focal point, not yours. Everyone watching the situation sees exactly who initiated the conflict and who chose to remain composed. Remember Mike from the restaurant? When he chose not to respond to the stranger's comments, the other people in the restaurant started looking at the loud guy with disgust. The stranger's friends became visibly uncomfortable. Within minutes, the guy realized he looked like a fool and quietly changed the subject. By not engaging, Mike let the insult backfire on the person who delivered it. The Stoics called this letting people hang themselves with their own rope. When you remain calm and dignified in the face of provocation, you force the other person to confront their own behavior. Most people, when they don't get the reaction they're looking for, will either escalate to the point where they embarrass themselves or they'll back down and move on. Third, and most importantly, you break the cycle of escalation. Seneca's warning about not being able to withdraw from the struggle when you please is incredibly relevant in our modern world. Think about road rage incidents, social media flame wars, or workplace conflicts that spiral out of control. They all start the same way. Someone says something offensive, the other person strikes back, and suddenly both parties are locked in a battle that neither one can win. The Stoics understood that it takes two people to create a fight, but only one person to prevent it. When you choose not to strike back, you're not just avoiding one conflict. You're preventing an entire chain of retaliatory actions that could extend far beyond the original insult. This doesn't mean you become a doormat or that you never defend yourself. The Stoics were clear about the difference between appropriate self-defense and unnecessary escalation. If someone is threatening your physical safety or the safety of others, that's a different situation entirely. But most insults, especially in our modern context, are just words. And words only have the power to hurt you if you give them that power. The real victory comes from the internal transformation that happens when you consistently choose not to fight back. You develop what the Stoics called inner citadel, a core of calm strength that can't be shaken by external circumstances. You become someone who can't be provoked, manipulated, or controlled by other people's emotions. This inner strength becomes visible to everyone around you. People start to respect you more, not less, when they see that you can't be baited into petty conflicts. Your friends and family feel safer around you because they know you won't drag them into unnecessary drama. Your coworkers see you as someone who can handle pressure and maintain professionalism even in difficult situations. The ancient Stoics knew that true strength isn't about how hard you can hit back. It's about how unshakable you can remain when others try to knock you off balance. When you master this skill, you don't just win individual conflicts. You win at life itself. 3. Turn insults into wisdom. The hidden gift method. Imagine this. You're at a family gathering in Chicago, and your sister-in-law casually mentions how much she dislikes your current career path. You always seem to jump from one thing to another, she says with a smirk. Instantly, you feel a rush of anger. How dare she question your choices? But then, as you take a deep breath, you remember something crucial. There might be a lesson lurking within this seemingly thoughtless insult. The Stoics believed that not all insults are meant to harm. Some may actually contain valuable nuggets of wisdom that can help us grow and improve. This is what I like to call the hidden gift method, and it can transform how you perceive and respond to criticism. Instead of seeing insults purely as attacks, the Stoics encourage us to view them as opportunities for self-reflection and personal development. The first step in this process is to take a moment to absorb the insult without reacting defensively. When your sister-in-law made her comment, your immediate instinct might have been to fire back or to get upset. But the Stoic approach teaches us to pause. This pause allows us to assess the situation more clearly. Ask yourself, is there any truth in what she said? Could this be a chance for me to reflect on my career choices? Marcus Aurelius, one of the most revered Stoic philosophers, frequently encouraged self-examination. In his writings, he often stated that we should look inward and assess our own actions and intentions. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts, he wrote. So, when faced with criticism, instead of dismissing it outright, take the time to consider whether it has merit. Next, consider the source of the insult. Is it someone who genuinely cares about your well-being? Or is it someone who often makes thoughtless remarks? In the case of your sister-in-law, it may be that she feels insecure about her own career and is projecting those feelings onto you. Understanding the context can help you remove the emotional charge from the insult. Epictetus, another key figure in Stoicism, emphasized that our judgments create the emotional impact of insults. He famously said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." By identifying the motivations behind the insult, you can better separate your self-worth from the hurtful words. Now that you've taken a step back and assessed the situation, it's time to engage with the insult constructively. Instead of allowing it to fester into resentment or anger, you can use it as a catalyst for growth. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Perhaps it reveals a pattern in your behavior that you weren't aware of. Maybe it highlights a blind spot in your professional life that you need to address. For instance, if you find that your sister-in-law's comments resonate with you, it might be an opportunity to reflect on why you switch jobs frequently. Are you avoiding commitment? Are you seeking new challenges? By turning the insult into a moment of introspection, you can emerge with valuable insights about your career trajectory and personal motivations. Another technique in the hidden gift method is to seek clarification. This can turn a negative interaction into a constructive dialogue. Instead of reacting defensively, consider asking the insulter for more details. In this scenario, you might say, "I appreciate your perspective. Could you elaborate on what you mean by that?" This not only shows that you're open to feedback, but also places the onus back on the person who made the comment to explain themselves. Often, they may not have thought through their words, and this can lead to a more meaningful conversation. Moreover, this method encourages you to engage in self-compassion. Remember, everyone makes mistakes, including you. When someone criticizes you, it can trigger feelings of inadequacy or defensiveness. The Stoics teach us to practice self-compassion, recognizing our shared humanity. Just as you can learn from criticism, so can others learn from their missteps. This mindset can help you approach insults with a sense of empathy rather than hostility. Lastly, remember that every insult provides a chance to refine your character. Stoicism teaches us to value personal growth above all else. If you can learn to turn insults into wisdom, you are not only becoming more resilient, but also cultivating a greater depth of understanding about yourself and others. You're transforming a negative experience into a foundation for your personal development. Consider the story of a young entrepreneur named Alex. Alex launched a startup that, while innovative, faced significant skepticism from the market. During a pitch meeting, a potential investor bluntly stated, "This idea is ridiculous. You'll never get funding with this nonsense." Alex felt crushed at first, but then he took a step back. Instead of retaliating, he reflected on the investor's comment. Was there any truth to the skepticism? Was there a flaw in his pitch that he needed to address? After some introspection, Alex realized that he hadn't clearly articulated the uniqueness of his idea. He went back to the drawing board, refined his pitch, and eventually secured funding. The initial insult became a stepping stone toward greater success. By recognizing the underlying lesson, Alex turned a moment of hurt into an opportunity for growth. This hidden gift method isn't just a way to deal with insults. It's a practical application of Stoic philosophy that can transform your life. By reframing insults as opportunities, you cultivate resilience, deepen your self-awareness, and ultimately become a more grounded individual. The next time someone hurls an insult your way, remember, it may be an invitation to learn something valuable about yourself. For your mind creates the insult, not the other person. Picture this scenario. You're scrolling through your Instagram feed on a Sunday morning when you stumble upon a post from an old friend. It's a picture of them with their new promotion, and they caption it, "Hard work pays off. Excited for the next chapter." Instead of feeling happy for them, you feel a pang of jealousy and start to think, "Why can't I have that? I work just as hard, if not harder." Suddenly, you find yourself spiraling into negative self-talk, convinced that everyone else is succeeding while you're stuck in a rut. This is a classic example of how our minds create the narrative around insults, both real and perceived. Stoicism teaches us that external events, including other people's words and actions, only have the power we give them. The true source of our emotional turmoil often lies not in what others say or do, but in our judgments about those actions. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, emphasized this when he stated, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Understanding this concept is a game changer when it comes to dealing with insults. Let's break down how our minds can distort reality and how we can regain control over our emotional responses. First, recognize that insults often stem from our internal narratives. When someone criticizes or insults us, our instinctive reaction is to internalize that negativity. We might think, "They're right," "I am a failure," or "I must not be good enough." However, this is a choice we make in our minds. The Stoics would argue that the words themselves are neutral. It's our interpretation that gives them power. Instead of allowing those words to define you, take a moment to examine your reaction critically. For example, let's say you're at work and your boss gives you feedback on your project, saying, "This isn't what I expected. You need to improve your attention to detail." Your initial response might be to feel insulted, thinking, "They don't appreciate my hard work." But if you pause and reflect, you might realize that your boss is simply pointing out an area for improvement. Their comment is not an insult to your worth as an employee. It's a constructive critique aimed at helping you grow. This shift in perspective is crucial. Instead of viewing the feedback as a personal attack, you can see it as an opportunity for growth. The Stoics believed that every challenge is a chance to learn and improve. By reframing your thoughts, you can transform negative experiences into valuable lessons. Next, consider the motivations behind the insult. Often, people lash out or make hurtful comments not because of who you are, but because of what they're experiencing. They may be projecting their insecurities, frustrations, or disappointments onto you. When you understand this, it becomes easier to detach your self-worth from their words. Imagine you're in a meeting and a colleague says, "You always take too long to make decisions. Why can't you be more decisive?" Instead of feeling defensive, think about what might be driving their comment. Are they under pressure? Are they feeling insecure about their own decision-making abilities? Recognizing that their words may have more to do with them than with you can help you respond with compassion rather than anger. This understanding allows you to create emotional distance from the insult. You can acknowledge the comment without letting it affect your self-esteem. Remember that their opinion doesn't define your value. You are not what others say you are. You are what you believe about yourself. Another essential aspect of this Stoic principle is recognizing the power of perspective. Our thoughts shape our reality. If you approach an insult with a fixed mindset, believing it to be a reflection of your worth, you'll inevitably feel hurt. However, if you adopt a growth mindset, viewing the insult as a chance for reflection and improvement, you can turn the situation around. Let's say you receive a harsh comment on a blog post you wrote. Instead of taking it personally and feeling defeated, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? Is there a kernel of truth in the criticism? Could it point you toward becoming a better writer? In doing so, you transform an insult into a stepping stone for growth. The Stoics also emphasized the importance of self-talk. How we speak to ourselves in response to insults can either empower us or undermine our confidence. When you encounter negativity, practice reframing your internal dialogue. Instead of saying, "I can't believe they think that about me. I must be terrible," try, "This is an opportunity to learn and grow. Not everyone will see my value, but I know my worth." Moreover, practicing gratitude can help shift your focus away from negativity. When you feel attacked or insulted, take a moment to list things in your life that you appreciate. Your supportive friends, your recent accomplishments, or even simple joys like a warm cup of coffee. This practice can help counterbalance the sting of an insult and remind you of your intrinsic value. Lastly, remember that you have the power to choose how you respond to what others say. In every situation, you can decide whether to accept or reject the narrative being presented to you. This is the essence of Stoic philosophy, taking ownership of your thoughts and feelings. By recognizing that your mind creates the insult, not the other person, you reclaim your power. You can choose to let go of the emotional weight that insults carry and focus instead on your growth and development. This doesn't mean you ignore valid feedback or criticism. It means you approach it with a mindset that prioritizes learning over emotional turmoil. As you navigate your daily interactions, remind yourself that insults are not the end of the world. They are opportunities wrapped in uncomfortable packaging. By practicing the Stoic principles of reflection, perspective, and self-control, you can turn every potential insult into a lesson learned. Next time someone hurls an insult your way, pause for a moment. Ask yourself what you can learn, who the person really is, and how you can respond in a way that empowers you. By doing this, you'll not only rise above the noise, but also emerge stronger and wiser. 5. When to fight back versus when to walk away. In today's fast-paced world, knowing when to stand your ground and when to walk away can be a critical skill. Think about a time you faced an insult or a provocation. Perhaps it was during a heated discussion at work, or maybe it happened in a social setting where someone made a cutting remark about your appearance or your abilities. The adage, "pick your battles," has never been more relevant, and Stoic philosophy offers profound insights into how to navigate these often fraught situations. Let's begin by understanding that not every situation demands a response. In fact, many situations are best handled by walking away. The Stoics teach us that self-control and emotional regulation are paramount. Seneca, a prominent Stoic philosopher, wrote extensively about the importance of maintaining our composure in the face of provocation. He emphasized that engaging in conflict often leads to a loss of dignity and a drain on our emotional resources. Consider the story of Rachel, a project manager in a bustling New York City office. One day, during a team meeting, a colleague publicly criticized her project proposal in front of the entire team. Instead of retaliating or defending herself aggressively, Rachel paused to assess the situation. She recognized that her colleague was under immense pressure to deliver results and might have been projecting their frustrations onto her. Instead of escalating the situation, Rachel calmly thanked her colleague for their feedback and suggested they discuss it one-on-one later. This moment of pause is crucial. Stoicism teaches us to take a step back and evaluate whether the conflict is worth engaging in. Ask yourself, is this worth my time and energy? Will responding lead to a constructive outcome, or will it only escalate the situation? By reframing the encounter as an opportunity for reflection rather than a personal attack, Rachel preserved her dignity and avoided unnecessary conflict. On the other hand, there are moments when standing your ground is essential. Fighting back doesn't always mean retaliating in anger. It can also mean asserting your boundaries or defending your values. The Stoics believed in standing firm against injustice and advocating for oneself when necessary. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are troubled by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Imagine you're in a situation where someone is consistently rude to you, undermining your contributions in meetings. This is not just a passing insult, but a pattern of behavior that affects your work environment and mental health. In such cases, it's crucial to address the behavior directly. This doesn't mean you need to resort to aggression or hostility. Instead, approach the situation with a calm demeanor, expressing how their comments affect you and the team. For instance, you might say, "I've noticed that during meetings, my ideas are often dismissed, and I feel it undermines the collaborative spirit we're trying to create. I'd appreciate it if we could foster a more respectful dialogue." By framing your response in a way that focuses on the impact of their behavior rather than attacking their character, you assert your boundaries without escalating the conflict. The key here is discernment. The Stoics emphasize the importance of understanding the nature of the conflict. Is the person you're dealing with someone who genuinely wants to engage in constructive dialogue, or are they simply looking to provoke a reaction? If it's the latter, then walking away might be the most empowering choice. Remember, you don't have to engage with someone who is not open to respectful communication. Moreover, Knowing when to walk away is not a sign of weakness. It's a demonstration of strength and wisdom. Walking away allows you to preserve your emotional energy and avoid getting dragged into a pointless argument. This aligns with the Stoic principle of focusing on what is within your control. You can control your reactions, your emotions, and your choices, but you cannot control how others behave. Take the example of Tom, who was involved in a heated debate on social media. A stranger made a derogatory comment about his opinion, trying to provoke him. Instead of responding in kind, Tom took a breath and decided to step back. He recognized that engaging with this person would not lead to a productive discussion. Instead, it would likely escalate into a barrage of insults. By walking away from the conversation, Tom preserved his mental peace and avoided the emotional toll that often comes with online conflicts. That said, there are times when a firm response is necessary. The Stoics believed in the importance of justice and integrity. If you find yourself in a situation where you or someone else is being treated unfairly or unjustly, it may be essential to stand your ground. This doesn't mean you have to respond with anger. Rather, you can assert your position firmly and clearly, advocating for yourself or others. For example, during a workplace evaluation, your boss makes a dismissive comment about your performance based on hearsay rather than actual results. In this scenario, it's important to calmly present your case, backed by data and facts. You might say, "I appreciate your feedback, but I believe it's important to evaluate the project based on the actual results we achieved. Here are the metrics that illustrate our success." This approach maintains your dignity while addressing the issue directly. Ultimately, the Stoic approach to conflict resolution centers on the idea of empowerment. By choosing when to engage and when to walk away, you reclaim your power in any situation. You are not merely reacting to external provocations. You are making intentional choices that align with your values and goals. In conclusion, the balance between fighting back and walking away is a nuanced one that requires self-awareness, discernment, and emotional intelligence. The Stoics provide us with a framework to navigate this balance effectively. By assessing the nature of the conflict, understanding the motivations behind the insults, and recognizing the impact on your life, you can make informed decisions about how to respond. As you move forward in your interactions, remember that you have the power to choose your battles wisely. Not every insult requires a response, and sometimes the strongest move you can make is to walk away gracefully. In the words of Marcus Aurelius, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." Empower yourself by focusing on what truly matters, and let go of the noise that does not serve your greater purpose. Choose your battles. How to travel light through life. As we wrap up our exploration of Stoic philosophy and how it applies to dealing with insults, let's take a moment to reflect on the key lessons we've learned. In a world where insults and negativity seem to be around every corner, the Stoics provide a powerful framework for navigating these challenges with grace and resilience. We began by understanding that insults often arise from ignorance, anger, or even wisdom. Each type of insult requires a different response, and recognizing this helps us choose how to engage. By applying the hidden gift method, we learn to turn insults into opportunities for reflection and growth, understanding that our reactions often shape our emotional experiences more than the insults themselves. The Stoics teach us that we have the power to control our responses. When faced with provocation, we can pause, reflect, and decide whether an insult is worth our energy. Sometimes the strongest move is to walk away, preserving our peace and dignity. Other times, standing firm in our values and asserting our boundaries is necessary. Both choices are ultimately about empowerment, choosing how we engage with the world around us, rather than letting others dictate our emotional responses. Remember the wisdom of Seneca, who reminded us that engaging in conflict can drain our resources and dignity. Instead, we can choose to live with purpose, focusing on what truly matters in our lives. As Marcus Aurelius advised, confining ourselves to the present allows us to navigate challenges with clarity and intention. So, how do we travel light through life, free from the burdens of insults and negativity? First, cultivate self-awareness. Recognize how you react to insults and challenge yourself to respond with intention rather than impulse. Practice gratitude, focusing on the positive aspects of your life and the people who uplift you. Surround yourself with supportive individuals who encourage your growth and well-being. Second, embrace the power of perspective. When faced with criticism, ask yourself what you can learn from the situation. This mindset shift transforms potential conflicts into opportunities for personal development. Remember, not every comment or insult is a reflection of your worth. It often reveals more about the other person than it does about you. Lastly, prioritize self-compassion. Just as you wouldn't harshly judge a friend for their mistakes, extend that same kindness to yourself. Understand that everyone faces challenges and makes missteps. By practicing self-compassion, you build resilience and maintain your sense of self-worth, regardless of external opinions. As we conclude this journey through Stoic wisdom and the art of handling insults, I encourage you to take these lessons to heart. Choose your battles wisely, and remember that you have the power to define your emotional landscape. By engaging with the principles of Stoicism, you can navigate life's challenges with a sense of peace and purpose. If you found value in this discussion, please consider subscribing to the Stoic Vivu channel for more insights on applying Stoic philosophy to your everyday life. Like this video, share it with friends and family, and let's spread the wisdom of Stoicism together. Remember, the path to inner peace starts with the choices we make every day. Thank you for joining me, and may you travel lightly through life, carrying only what truly matters.